Hi, I'm Stanley, and tonight we're reading A Home for Mr. Tips. Hidden away at the bottom of a long, forgotten garden lived a sad stray cat called Mr. Tips. Nearly everyone is scared of something, but poor Mr. Tips was scared of everything. He worried about the wind that wailed and ran from the rain that soaked his fur. Even his own shadow made him jump. Poor Mr. Tips wouldn't even dare to climb a tree unless he absolutely had to. And then he'd be too scared to come down again. Early one morning, Mr. Tips was surprised to discover a bowl of warm milk waiting for him. Peering around nervously, he lapped up to the milk and then darted away. Every day after that, Mr. Tips found a fresh bowl of milk. And every day a young boy crept a little closer until eventually the young boy and Mr. Tips became friends. Sometimes while his parents were busy, the young boy and the stray cat would go exploring. They flew kites, played catch, and watched the world go by. Mr. Tips was so happy he forgot about being frightened. But one day there was no bowl and no boy. With a heavy heart, Mr. Tips slipped away down the rain-soaked street. He hadn't gone far when he suddenly found a huge dog that leapt out at him. Mr. Tips was terrified. He dashed through the gardens, over the streams, under cars, and around trees. But by the time he got away, it was very dark, and he was all alone. The next morning, when the sun rose, Mr. Tips realized he was completely lost. He worried he might never find his way back home. The young boy was worried too. He'd rushed back from a weekend at his grandmother's house to leave out a bowl of milk, but no one came to drink it. Aww. The boy looked everywhere for Mr. Tips. He'd even put up notices, but no one had seen the scruffy little cat. The moon shone in the cold night sky, and still the boy kept searching. Meanwhile, poor Mr. Tips was struggling to find his way home. He was cold, wet, and miserable. Just as he thought things couldn't get any worse, he was chased into a deep, dark wood. The wind wailed through the gnarled old trees and rattled the twisty branches. The cold night air was filled with strange and unnatural noises. That was when Mr. Tips saw it. A terrifying monster rose out of the mist. Huffing and puffing, it crept closer and closer and closer until hoot! It shrieked. Except it wasn't a monster at all. Just a young boy looking for his lost cat. So together the friends made their way home. Now that Mr. Tips had somewhere safe to live and enough to eat, he completely forgot to be scared. And that's the end for a home for Mr. Tips. I think Mr. Tips likes his new home.